November 2021 saw COVID cases starting high and creeping up higher still, pipping the 50,000 cases a day mark by the end of the month. The third vaccine dose, termed the booster, saw its uptake go from 15 to 33% of the population, though it still isn't being offered to my age group. And deaths have crept down ever so slightly, which is possibly indicative of younger age groups being the most infected. The rest of Europe is now amidst a new wave of cases, and funnily enough, here in England I feel quite safe from that since we're already at a high case level. What's the new wave going to do? Infect us again? Actually, yes. Or no. Maybe. Because a new variant has been discovered, codenamed Omicron, and information about it is just as confused as you'd expect from a new variant at this point. We should all know the drill by now. Something new is discovered, then in the time between initial discovery and actual data on it is the endless flood of rumours and conflicting reports. One day people are saying it's more virulent and deadly than the rest, then the next it isn't. But it doesn't help that governments react similarly, quickly shutting down travel from infected countries even though it's obviously too late because cases are being found here already. And I've seen the usual thing of people blaming the country that first discovers the new strain, even when all they've done is to be responsible by testing, identifying and announcing their findings. So, last time I checked, there are hundreds of cases of Omicron in England, and it looks set to become the dominant strain. But it might be a different story tomorrow. But it does look like COVID's gearing up to ruin a second Christmas. I am continually trying to reassess how reasonable my stances on COVID are. Sometimes that means having an opinion about something, and other times it means not having one until more data about something comes out. When it comes to doing things in the short term, I grab opportunities when I see them, but I err on the side of caution when planning in advance. For instance, my girlfriend loves going away on holiday just before Christmas, and I thoroughly shot down any plans she had for going abroad, which is just as well because restrictions are tightening and there is now a very real possibility that we just end up stranded abroad, quarantined, hopefully, in a room somewhere. At least by remaining in England, we can drag ourselves home without having to worry about the airports. But we did go abroad this month. I went out to Finland for a CSGO event, hosted by Red Bull. I'll be covering the whole thing in more depth over on 3Clicks Phillips' channel, but it was exciting to finally go on a flight again. But COVID was always there in the back of our minds, and it was a relief to finally get home again without there being any problems. But then I kind of feel like that after most trips away. I don't know what's normal for an airport, but my girlfriend remarked on how empty the departure board looked. So here is a picture of it in Helsinki during a pandemic. Our NHS app came in handy, as we used its QR codes to confirm that we had been doubly vaccinated. It's nice to see the system being universally accepted, and being used as a measure to at least try and make travel possible and as safe as it can be. The flights were really nice. One of them was only about half full, so it was easy to distance yourself from others, and everybody did that thing just after takeoff where they moved to sit next to their partners. Most people were good about wearing masks on the plane, and it seemed like more people in Helsinki were wearing their masks in shops than we do here in England. I did a COVID test for the CSGO event, and spent the first day wearing a mask as I walked about, but I realised it was causing a problem. I had been invited out there by Red Bull because I'm a YouTuber that people recognise, but few people could when I had my mask on, and as soon as I removed it, people started saying hi to me. So I did change my behaviour as the event went on, where I wouldn't wear a mask unless the people talking to me were, and then I'd put one on out of respect. And I'd also remove it for pictures. This is just one of those really specific situations that will affect me, but hardly anybody else. But I did give it thought. Also, shout out to the people at the event who told me this COVID series is their favourite series that I make. But let's hope there won't be a sequel. I suppose when an event like that starts, it's scary to see so many people everywhere, but when nobody's coughing and when everybody's having a good time, it does gradually lure you into a sense of security. Maybe even a false one. I'm just happy that the whole thing went without a problem, as are Red Bull, who were the ones hosting an expensive event amidst a pandemic. You're probably curious to know how it went. I certainly was. The general feeling I got from talking to people there was that it could have gone better, but that nobody was surprised that it hadn't sold out, given COVID and travel restrictions and stuff. I guess I'm used to the CSGO majors, which are massive things that draw crowds from all over the world, but the audience at this event seemed much more local. Most people I spoke to were Finnish and lived within a few hours of the event, which might just be the case with smaller CSGO events in general. I did meet somebody on the plane though, so I know we weren't the only ones flying out to attend. And of course, the staff and players came from all over as well. So I was reviewing this video, ready to release it, and at this point I realised it didn't cover any of the bits you're probably curious about. How does COVID affect different modes of transport? How does travel between England and Finland compare with a ferry from Finland to Estonia? How do all these different countries appear to deal with COVID, and so on? So I'll briefly talk about this now. Flying from England to Finland felt normal, only you wore masks and presented your vaccination pass both before and after flying. You don't even need to use the NHS app, you can just print it out and give them an old-fashioned bit of paper with it on. Travel between Finland and Estonia felt more lax. You walk through the front door, you present your ticket, and I think passport? I wasn't really paying attention because my girlfriend deals with that stuff, and then you hop on the ferry. Simple as that, and nothing COVID related at all. In Estonia, one of the restaurants we went didn't have any COVID measures in place, but a place selling buns insisted that we showed our vaccination certificates before we could buy anything. Finland felt more COVID restriction-y, with the same measures as England has. I can't remember how many places ask to see our vaccine record, but you just carry it with you, and it's there if it's asked for, isn't it? The trams were crammed full of people wearing masks, and the shops felt like the ones in England. So yeah, nothing really stood out as being different from home. So maybe the reason I didn't think to mention this stuff originally was because nothing stood out that I felt was worth mentioning. But at least now I've told you that. Next, I'm going to entertain you by being really stupid. There's a disconnect in my mind between big numbers and what they mean. You could tell me there are 1.5 billion cars in the world, but it's only when I find myself in a traffic jam in Timbuktu that I suddenly realise, wow, there must be a lot of cars in the world for there to be so many here right now. And likewise, COVID continues to surprise me by being more global than I imagined. Obviously it's everywhere, in every country and every city. But it's more than that, it's in every town and every village and every hamlet, even the ones you forget exist because they're so remote and difficult to get to. I could visit a few buildings in the darkest depths of Cornwall, a place that's remained unchanged for centuries, and I'd still find signs asking me to wear a mask, and soap dispensers in the entrances of shops. We took a bus from Helsinki to a town an hour away. If I moved there tomorrow, nobody I know would ever find me, ever again. But there are still soap dispensers in the shops there. You could spin a globe, put your finger on some far-off corner of Russia, and somewhere there will still probably have a sign on the window and a soap dispenser in the entrance. If COVID was a mod for a computer game, then these sorts of places would have been forgotten about. But they haven't been, because COVID really has affected everywhere. But life carries on. I factor it into every decision I make, and I do have to regularly review my stance on it, based on the latest information. I will now accept a certain level of risk. I will visit my friends. I will attend events. I won't plan too far into the future because the future is very likely to change. And if I get COVID, I don't want to pass it on. I want to be the one to end the chain. And I think most people have become more like this. I mean, how else can you be? You can't just hide away forever, nor can you have the attitude that everybody should just get it and be done with it, because it seems like that might not be the end of it now. So I think you've got to do it all. You've got to be cautious now and hopeful about the future, but also to enjoy the present and to prepare for it to get worse later on. As we approach the end of this year, it's definitely been worse than 2020 was. 2020 was new and exciting, and there were still hopes that vaccines or lockdowns could end this in one way or another. 2021 has shown us that it is likely here to stay. At best, it will fizzle out so gradually that we won't even get the satisfaction of an unfurled, mission-accomplished flag and a party to celebrate. And the saddest thing is, even if it did disappear tomorrow, we won't just return to how we used to be. It will still take a long time for us to adjust. COVID was a separate thing in my mind for a long time, but now it's seeped through and contaminated every aspect of my life in one way or another. And that's worse. I don't want to accept it like this forevermore. But I don't want to end this video on doom and gloom. I don't want to make it unnecessarily happy either. So I'll just say that life carries on, and stuff continues to happen. And this time next year, I'll be in a much better position to look back to now and to say how good life was back then.
This is an important health announcement. Please maintain a safe distance to others, ensure good hand and respiratory hygiene, and wear a mask. If you suspect you may have contracted the coronavirus, please go to the COVID-19 health information point between arrivals hall 2A and 2B. If you are ill, you should not travel.